Just to present myself to those of you who don't know me, my name is Anne Johnson. I'm a colleague of Juliana. I work at KMD as something like a user experience, design thinking, innovation consultant. So that's my job every day, and it's very much fun. You came here to learn a little bit about what design thinking is in SAP. So I'll just quickly chalk up what is the process, and then what are the principles, and where does it exist in SAP. So many of you might already know these slides, but I'll just be ultra short. You will be getting them, so just listen to what I have to say, and don't read too much. So we start with scoping, and that's all about getting the stakeholders together and getting them to agree on a common scope on where are we right now and where are we going. After they've agreed on where are we right now and where are we going, it's about researching, diving into the complete problem, understanding the 360 as SAP calls it, so research 360. That's about interviewing the right users, the right stakeholders, getting as much information as possible. After interviews, talking to the right people, getting as much data as possible, it's all about synthesizing the data that you have collected and understanding not just, okay, we have a lot of people who have a lot to say about a problem that we want to solve, but also understand, are there patterns here? Do they say the same thing, or are there outliers? Are some saying something completely different? Is that perhaps equally interesting? After that, we move on to ideation. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome. Get in here. And ideation is all about doing the fun things. It's about being creative. It's about getting the right stakeholders, the right users, the right people into the same space, and actually getting them to brainstorm on how could the future possibly look. And this, after having brainstormed lots and lots of ideas, goes on to prototyping. And I've taken prototyping and validation sort of in one and the same, because it's also an iterative circle. You prototype something, make something quick and dirty, doesn't have to be pretty, just get it out there to users and get some feedback, because that's what the design thinking process is actually all about. It's not about making something pretty or making something right the first time. It's about getting quick feedback so that you can actually use the time constructively at the beginning of a project or a process. So in relation to Juliana's slide, she talked about the whole, we have some mentality, some mindset, and then it sort of goes down there. I'll list what these elements are in regards to design thinking. First of all, we have the mentality. It's all about people, it's all about the process, and it's also about the space. And I'll get into what these three things mean just in a little while, but I'll continue. Then it's about the process itself, right? That's going from, let's scope, we have a problem, we want a solution to, and then the process goes all the way over to, okay, now we have a prototype that has been tested, it has been validated, we have a proof of concept, we can move on with this. Then we have the methods. And the methods are in regards to design thinking, each step along the way. So our method could be, now we're doing synthesis. We're looking at all the data that we have, and then we're cooking, boiling it down to its essence. Or, for example, right now we're not thinking about the problem anymore. We're thinking about the solution. So let's ideate. Let's not talk about the problem anymore. We can go back to that. So the methods is, we have a common mindset right now that says we're ideating, or we're prototyping, etc. In these specific method areas, we also have techniques. So a technique could be, for example, when we're scoping, let's do a silent brainstorm. Or when we are doing some synthesis, let's make a mind map. Or when we're ideating, let's have the different hats, the 5 hats game. Those are the techniques that we can use in each of these areas and methods. Which tools do we use then? Well, we have post-its for one. We all know that. It could also be whiteboards that we have. Plain, big surfaces to write on. Be creative. And this also links with the space, because what kind of space do we have? In design thinking, we need these open, bright spaces, just like this one actually. And then lots of space to stand up, move around, get the blood flowing, get the mind working. Also with the tables that can go all the way up so we can have standing conversations. And then it's all about the personal mentality as the last part. But this is the most important one, because this sort of brings together how we as individuals, not just see ourselves when we're working, but also how we see others. So, human values and all the rest. Now imagine that we take all of these elements and then we say these are valid throughout the whole system tree, so to say. Yes, in everything that relates to business, this is relevant. Data, application, technology, in all levels of our business can this be applied, because we need to work together. So back to all of the things with the mindset. This is sort of, I would say, it's difficult to understand when it's these high-level elements, right? So let's start with people. What do we mean with people? Well, first of all, we mean that we bring lots of different types of people together in one room, and then we say, let's communicate properly with each other. And that's why we have the techniques like silent brainstorm to help us communicate. But it's also a lot about psychology. What happens when I ask you to be silent for 5 minutes? What happens inside your brain? What happens when I say you have 2 minutes now to answer and no more? What happens? How do we start to think? And how do we think differently in different parts of the process? Then we have the process, and that's all about being structured. We are here now, that means we're using this mentality. We are here now, this means that we have to apply these and these steps. And remember, design thinking is iterative. So if we make a mistake, that's fine. We can just jump back. That's the good part of it. Fun and easy, but also quick. And the last one, place. Now I've put kitchen party up here because this is the point. Have you ever been to a party and then you got out into the kitchen to bring snacks or something to eat, right? And people are standing there talking with each other, and then you also fall into talk. And it's actually more fun being in the kitchen than in the actual party. Yes, Frank is nodding over there. I think something magical happens when we're standing in the kitchen and talking to each other. And this magic is what we try to also create when we're doing design thinking. So where is it in SAP? As Juliana mentioned, it occurs both before and while we're doing SAP Activate. But it's also in regards to Leonardo, or what they now call intelligent technologies, in regards to let's explore new services. How do we create an IoT service if we don't know what the needs are, what the future needs? In regards to Fiori as a UX, it's built into the process of creating user experience, but also in regards to business processes. And this is important because this means it's not just making smartphone applications, it's also about bettering the way we do our businesses. So SAP has taken design thinking in as part of their family because they can see that it actually brings them value. And some of the areas of value that they brought is, for example, co-innovation. Who doesn't love that? Having this shared stakeholderness, shared ownership. It's about creating enriched digital experience, so user experience also gets in on it. It's about getting the right insights, as it says. Insights, and how do we get those? We listen, and that's part of the process. So, okay, cool, we want to be part of this too, we want to learn about this too. Where can you guys find it? I would say, first of all, experience sap.com. This is about introductions. This can help you start out with, for example, the principles. It can tell you about what is the difference between design thinking and UX and UI. And there are a lot of introductory elements and blogs in here that can help you move forward. Then there is the blog space, which has a lot of experts who write a lot about whatever they're interested in. This is where you find expert knowledge. And also, if you want to ask someone, how do we move forward? Go in here and find the right people. And also in here you can just search for design thinking if you're interested in that, but also it has its own tag, so you can just search by the tag and you'll find everything that has been tagged by it. Moving on, next, if we're doing a project or if we're going through the process and we need some quick help or some inspiration, we can use Build. How many of you know the Build tool? Yeah, okay. Not so many again, but this is a digital cloud-based SAP prototyping tool. So this helps you make Fiori application prototypes. But in here you also have in the learning section the whole process, design thinking, where if you click on one of them, you can see you get a list of different things you could do in this process element, but also which techniques and how to do the techniques. So super important. Moving on, training.sap.com and OpenSAP is super important because these give you deep dives into what kind of sub knowledge and abilities do you need to do this properly if you want to do it as well. Yeah. Moving on. Then we have the SAP Jam group. And how many of you are part of Jam? Oof. Not so many again. Okay. So SAP has something called Jam, which is people-based. People throw in lots of experience. But one of these is called SAP Methodologies. And this is linked to the Activate. And when you go in here and you deep dive into this Activate methodology, you'll actually find the whole process for Activate and which kind of activities you should do throughout. One of these activities, which I've just highlighted, is actually the stakeholder map, which is a typical thing to do in your design thinking process. So they have already incorporated design thinking into the overall Activate process. And here are some more elements that fit perfectly for your design thinking process. So you could actually do design thinking as a part of your agile Activate method. Other than that, go to the sappress.com or App House for some learning materials. I've written a book which I am raffling on right now, so when we're done, please write your name if you want to have a chance to win it and put it in there. We'll raffle. And again, we also have possibility to be inspired about the spaces. So SAP has this App House thing going on, where they, in several cities around the world, you make these super awesome areas where you just feel inspired by being there. I can very much recommend that if you want to get into design thinking, get that space. Be inspired, make it on your own. So, some people might ask me, why do we even want to be inspired or interested? And this is not you guys being here. This is perhaps your bosses, your managers, your co-workers, when you say, we have a great idea, right? And this is maybe some arguments to help them understand why this might be very, very much important. Because through the past and onto the present right now, what has happened with technology? We've gone from very singular use cases, we have a phone, it rings to other people, onto the smartphone, for example, which has lots and lots of different kind of use cases. Technology in itself is moving from one type of use to a new type of use, just from the past to the present. Then we have society, right? We have a different way of thinking. You thought differently before because society is different. You get around differently. You communicate differently. You get educated on different subjects. This has to be taken into consideration when we make things. And just 30 years back, a whole different way of seeing the world. And then we also have businesses. We have reinvented the way we do services. I mean, McDonald's is a great example on how things have become different. So that is about, we are right now in the present, right? And we say, how can we use it to make today better? And some use cases could be, for example, climate change. What happens when every gas car is not allowed anymore? How do we get around? How will society look? Huge, huge impact. Something like plastic in our oceans, what do we do? This is relevant, right? But then also, we see very many social unrests. For example, in France right now, lots of social unrest. How can we help these people get a better life? And also one that is very frightening, the whole anti-vaccine movement going on. Maybe a new way of interacting with healthcare systems is necessary. Who knows? And then that's just today, the problems we have today, right? Then we think about the future and we say, okay, how could the future look, right? We know what kind of problems we could solve for today, but what about, how would we wish the future was? What about technology? It becomes the wearable, and we call it everywhere, as in technology embedded in everything. It tells us everything about things that we need to know. It communicates across. Nothing sets the boundaries, right? Then we have the projects. It used to be just waterfall, but now we see a rising trend in the agile, and we have Kanban and Scrum, and everything is starting to look different. Scrumban. And also another thing. What?
It must be a misspelling.
No, I think it's a combination here. Yeah. So at Sapphire this year, SAP was very, very much focused on this customer experience of the future. This is design thinking. This is what we do. I mean, it's right there. We have the tools. So in regards to what kind of future do we want? I mean, we could create anything. What kind of system for new schools should there be? Or what kind of future existence do you want? Right? That's where we are. And that's where design thinking can help us in a very organized way to get there. Or at least to say, we have these ideas, let's go in that direction. So what challenges do we face? I've been looking forward to this. Contract-based projects. Or we think it's agile, but it's sort of actually, waterfall. Can you just make it look agile and that'll be fine? We could try, but is it? That's a hurdle.
It depends on the contract.
Yeah, of course,
If a contract is to make it agile. We had customer projects which they had a contract, and the contract was, please work with Scrum.
And did you work with Scrum?
Yes, it was set by customer.
Yeah.
Just work with Scrum.
Yeah.
So
But perhaps sometimes the customers also don't know that maybe working agile will cost them less money, take less time, will help them with quality assurance, and also give a better relation. I mean, this is a hurdle, right? That's my opinion anyway. So we have also the expert mentality. And how many of you know what the expert mentality is? I Google searched expert mentality, and this was the face that popped up. I am so sure that I am right, and I've always done this for 30, 40 years, and this is how I continue to do it. That's the expert mentality. How do we encourage these people to join in a new way of doing things? I'll give a suggestion later. And also, how do we start being creative? We are swamped as it is. We don't have time for that. I have so many tasks. I can't do it. How do we find time to be creative?
just not to sleep.
Yeah.
And you have additional time.
Could you write that down? I'll have it on my next. So the whole thing is that we have this do the same thing, same old results, right? And the world is absolutely littered with so much complexity nowadays that it's difficult to see how we should fit it in. Agile, DevOps, design thinking, all of these new ways of thinking. So the as-is problematics as they are right now in regards to people, process, and places. Yeah, you can read it while I talk. Yeah. So the overall point is that we know what the problems are. We just need to find the right elements to get in on track. And I will suggest some elements that helped us in our journey to getting to where we are right now with design thinking. So a lot of people come to me and say, Annie, you're this innovation consultant. Can't you help me or us with these this innovation and design thinking? And these are some of the questions that I get. So how do I get my managers to see that design thinking is a good idea to invest in? That's a valid question. And what I tell them is, okay, let's imagine the future. This is one of those diagrams of what will happen to humanity if we either continue as we do, or if for example, our population grows, if we continue to create, in this case, energy and resource use, population, or population pollution. And you have probably seen this one before, right? We could all either rise with population and just continue upward, or there could be a curve where we have mass extinction and it falls down to a low, or it could just level out. But these are all valid futures. And in regards to the managers, say, well, what will the society look like in 10 years? What will the market look like in 5 years? And how should our business be in 2 years in order to meet these new futures? And you can do any kind of future scenarios, right? But as long as you start thinking about them. Because if your company continues to be the way it is, you're not going to be part of the future, obviously. Because as we saw from the past to the present, things change, and they're only going to change faster. So do a workshop with your managers and do some of this future scenario creation. That's the one of them. Education is difficult. Is reading up on the giving materials enough so that we don't have to go to expensive seminars and get the full training? Can't we just read up on it? right? And then do it, because I have just told you where there is so much information to find. And this is where I'm going to ask you, or recommend, that you get a designer. Most specifically, someone who is specialized in or knows about human-computer interaction. And the reason for this is that they have specialized in so many sub-areas and touch upon so many, both the human aspects, the business aspects, and also technology development. They speak all languages. They know about psychology. So if you really want to get into design thinking, I recommend getting yourself one of these. Because it's not just about, we hold a workshop, right? This is in regards to a project process where you have one workshop. So evaluate strategy, prepare workshop material, host a workshop, do the research, extract the data, understand, analyze, and rewrite it, follow up with the findings, notify the stakeholders, make an updated plan, give feedback to the project manager, and prepare new workshop material. You need an expert to do that. It is quite simple.
An expert?
A design thinking expert.
It's another kind of expert, which is bias-free.
What?
Well, you just told in the first part that basically the experts are biased. They know, they have in mind that they know what they talk about, and it's done that way and no other way. So why should I use an expert here?
Yeah. So these, this is my background. So what we spend about a year focusing on is understanding design research, as in researching design, as in finding out that maybe we should do it in a different way. Maybe the old way is not good enough. I don't know, when you write code or you do projects in a specific way, is there a project research element to that? Maybe to the newer ones, but the ones who have been doing the same thing for 30 years, that's the expert mentality that I'm talking about. Yeah. We really just want to start this ourselves. No one from the outside. How do we do this? Okay, so I recommend that you start small. Have a small group of people who all know a little bit about what's going on, who trust each other, and then try that out. What you should do from the beginning is keep it simple. Just keep it simple. And then, on top of that, please focus on what do we want to achieve when we're doing this design thinking. Do we want to try it out and make it better as we go so that it fits us? Or do we want a specific goal in regards to finding out a specific problem or making an application? We don't have the resources to invest in kitchens and in post-its. And to this I say, do you have resources to invest in marketing? Most likely yes. Imagine that design thinking helps the way marketing helps, just on the inside of the company, so that people get to know each other and trust each other more, just like marketing helps you trust a brand and understand the company. So if you have money for this, marketing, social medias, then you should have money for design thinking in the future as well. Okay, we can't keep the fire going. Yeah, we've tried and we tried and we tried. How should we do to just keep the people invested? And then we have like design thinking going on in the middle. And that's where I'm going to ask you what's around it. What do you put around design thinking? What other moons orbit around it? It could be, do you make events with the people in the teams? Do you go to these social meet and greets? Do you go have Friday beer every second Friday to keep them together? It could also be, do you do you gather them, your team, to sit in a specific place where they are sitting together, or are they spread out? Collect them. Herd the sheep.
This is a thing.
Oops. Yeah. And also something that's very, very important is that when you're dealing with design thinking and planning and keeping people in the loop, it is always easier to cancel a meeting than it is to invite people to a new one. So have a recurring meeting where just get people together on the same channel, get an update, and you can always cancel that. It's more difficult the other way around. So how long do I have to work with design thinking for it to really work in our company? And Rolls-Royce did a huge shift in their innovation culture where they implemented design thinking. And it took them a little over 2 years. But in regards to having perhaps a 10-year plan or strategy, 2 years is nothing. And that's why you need these future scenarios. Because yes, it takes a long time. But do you want the company to survive more than 2 years? Yes, probably. Then it's worth it. So what are our responsibilities moving forward here today? I would say first step is translating the high-level methodology into concrete examples of workshops so that you are able to use them. And when you've done this, tried out some workshops, did it work, didn't it work, then share the knowledge that you made with your team, with the other teams that are in your company as well, so that you in turn as a company can start also collaborating with other companies or with other silos within your company, if you have those, so that you sort of create an ecosystem where the word gets spread, because that's how it works. So try starting small, agendas first, simple, be focused on what do we want to achieve, what kind of mindset are we in, exactly. Are we looking for new data this meeting, or are we trying to synthesize some of the data that we have collected? So keep your people focused. And then it goes on the bigger day agendas. What are we doing this day? What are we spending it on? And are we keeping on track? And then for the bigger projects, what kind of goals do we have long term? And how are we going to plan of attack deal with them? And in regards to, I think it was DevOps in specificness, KPIs. If you have design thinking, it's difficult maybe to say where are we winning right now, because maybe it takes 2 years, right? Make KPIs. Say in a single workshop, how many aha experiences did the participants get? Maybe we'll count them as KPIs, or how many other are interested in design thinking after this workshop? How many shared it? Use the soft KPIs. So get either some managers or some design thinkers who dare take the first step, who dare get out there. And then when you have manager buy-in and you have a cool facilitator, just make them go nuts, because they know what they're doing. They know how to go from one process element to the other. And then know also, and this is very important, how to get people out of their comfort zones, but in a safe environment still. And of course, they know how to use their tools. And they really do. There are some great design thinkers out there. So what SAP did was they hired 35 design thinkers and just threw them in. I think it was in Waldorf actually. And they just said, do whatever you do, just do it. And what happened was that because the design thinkers started working with the small steps, it sort of spread. And it spread all the way out, so that now it's relevant. And that's where I am today as well in my company. It has spread so much that it is now relevant at the absolute most top level of the management. What's that called? CTO, CTF, CO.
C-level.
Yeah. Okay. C-level. Yes, exactly.
It's
C-level.
called C-level.
Where they want to implement it now. And so just to wrap up, what would I recommend for you guys? Make a long-term company plan, as in future scenario. Have a boss that agrees with you and thinks that this is just awesome, and wants to invest something on it. Start small if you don't have the resources. Just one project, get in there, do something, get a small group, just one facilitator. You don't need more for it to just sort of grow on its own. Have a killer design expert / design thinking expert. Helps you a lot. Just make them do whatever they want to do. It helps tremendously. Second last, be vocal about your wins. This is so important. Hey guys, did you hear this workshop? We found out A, B, and C. So cool. Oh, okay, nice. Yeah, like people can feel it when you're having a great time. And of course, sort of connect your design thinking journey to the KPIs so that you can measure how well you're going. Yes, that's all. Thank you.